Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen. With me today is our own pianist in residence, Sam Page. This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today. Double checking my skin every couple minutes here to see does it still have skin, because my cat Joy is rubbing it raw with his tongue. I have no idea if I'm going to have skin left by the time we're done, but well, we'll just have to wait and see what happens with that.
Cats are going to do what cats are going to do.
They do, yes. They have minds of their own. They make it clear to everybody else that they have minds of their own. And if you disagree with them, good luck, because it's not going to work.
Right.
It's just the way it works. Well, you got two of them of your own. What are yours called?
I do. I have Ahi and Yeti. Ahi they're both lovely long-haired girls. They're not true. They're not from the same litter, but they treat each other as sisters. They fight and play like their sisters.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool. Beautiful. And how you doing there, Sam? We haven't really chatted before.
I'm doing all right. Yeah, I couldn't hear anybody after the intro, but good now. But yeah, no, happy to be here as always. I'm looking forward to it.
One of these days we got to get a little improv from you. We haven't done that in a while.
That is true. Yes. I think last week I said this week, but I didn't have quite enough time to get that set up. So maybe let's plan on next week.
Well, next week is actually a very fortuitous week because that's the week that Joel Elston's returning. And for those people, so people who follow, that's right. So for people who follow us on the live streaming, we'll be recording that at 7 p.m. Eastern rather than 4 p.m. Eastern. If you're just listening to the podcast, obviously, you don't have to worry about that because it shows up in your stream. But if you are somebody who likes to tune into the live stream, Tuesdays are going to be at 7 p.m. And the return of Joel Elston, Emily Bossert is our guest today. Emily, this is a guy who was one of my first co-hosts back when I started. I started in 2012. He was my 12th interview, and then he became the co-host after that. Yeah. And this guy is, well, first of all, his story is both traumatic and amazing. I mean, just an inspiring story. You listen to it and you say, how on earth is he still alive?
Oh my God.
But more than that, oh my goodness, what he has turned his life to is just absolutely amazing. The things that he's been able to do in his life. And he has, of course, the wisdom that comes along with that because he has learned so much. He's like you, he's a coach. He's actually a former psychotherapist who transitioned into being a life coach. And he specializes in helping young boys who are caught in the foster care system. And has had amazing results there. I mean, he helps lots of different kinds of people, but particularly, I mean, I think his current total is 43 of these boys who were considered unadoptable, all getting forever homes. Every single one of them. And
I'll have to tune in for that.
Yeah. And something that kind of adds a little spice to it. And I always like to make a point of this. I didn't know about this. Most people don't know about this, but if a kid goes through the foster care system, particularly a boy, and never gets adopted, odds are almost 100% that by age 25, he'll either be dead or in prison. So getting these kids forever homes is life-saving.
Literally life-saving.
Literally. Yeah.
Wow.
So what a legacy and that's one little piece of what this guy does. I mean, it's just incredible. So anyway, we're all looking forward to having Joel come back, and it's going to be a lot of fun. But today we have Emily joining us, and Emily is also a life coach like Joel is. She specializes in helping women with basically helping them create the kind of lives that they really want to have, their authentic lives. She is the co-host of the 6 a.m.ers podcast, which we're going to find out more about. And this is going to be a fun conversation. So Emily, welcome to the program. How you doing?
Thank you, Walt and Sam. I appreciate you both having me today. I'm so excited to be here. I am doing really well. I'm here in Boulder, Colorado, and it's spring. However, we just had snow today. We have a few inches outside, but by end of week, I think we're supposed to get into the 70s. So, you just never know what to expect day to day.
I'm in Connecticut. We just hit 70 today, and this is like the first time we came anywhere close to it. So yeah, fortuitous that you mentioned that.
It's bizarre. I was wearing my winter coat 2 days ago, and
you're near the lakes. You're in Cleveland, right?
Columbus, Ohio.
Oh, Columbus. That's right. Columbus. Okay. You're in Columbus. Yeah. What kind of weather are you getting right now?
Weather's a little all over.
Oops. I think we just had a screen freeze there. We'll ask him when he comes back. So, all right. Well, Emily, while we're waiting for Sam to be able to reconnect, give us a little bit of autobiography. How did you get into being a woman's life coach?
Oh, sure. Okay. Well, it started upon arrival on planet Earth, quite frankly.
Oh, okay.
We're going to go way back. We're going to go way back to the very beginning, when I was, I was born in the 70s, and I was born during a time where, in the Midwest, where I remember at some point someone saying to me, women and children should be seen and not heard.
Oh, well,
and
yeah.
I was a young, it's been around, and I was a young girl. And, well, first of all, I knew it wasn't true. But also at such a young age, it did truly impact me. And I think I know that statement was what became a driving force for me in terms of my growth, my authenticity, and ultimately leading me into adulthood and who I became and who I'm becoming on a daily basis. Because we as women, we as humans, I should say, but we as women, we're going to talk specifically to that just because I brought up the women and children should be seen and not heard.
Right.
There's a sense that perhaps what we have to say isn't or wasn't as important. And so that was something that I had to work through myself over the decades. And it's something that has allowed me, I think of it as almost as if, and I know this might sound strange, but almost as if it's a positive today, because it really did chart the course and the trajectory for what my passion and what my true path is in life.
Yeah. Oh, that totally resonates as far as I'm concerned. I can't tell you. I mean, I've been doing this podcast for a little over 10 years now, and we're over 1,900 episodes so far. So lots of interviews. The one consistent theme that plays out over and over and over again is some sort of a horrible childhood or a crash and burn or some sort of tragic thing that happened that turns into some wonderful understanding and epiphanies and so forth. And universally, everybody says, I never want to go through it again, but boy, am I glad that it happened.
I agree. And one of the things I believe that I chose the parents that I was born into, the family I was born into. I believe that I chose to be alive at this particular time in space. And the stars align and they give you what they give you for a very specific reason. And I believe that I actually asked for it in some sense, because I knew that if I did have to go through this, and if I did as a young girl actually think, is my voice not as important? I was able to really go deep into that well and find my own inner truth. And it's led me to where I am. So grateful for the journey.
Yeah, I hear you. And by the way, I grew up, I was a teenager in the 70s, and I mean, that's formative. I mean, the formative years are truly 2 to 7. We all kind of know that. Yep. But the ones we know about and think about the most are the teenage years. And the 70s wasn't all that different from this current decade. I mean, it was a traumatic decade. There was a lot of craziness going on. And as I look back on it, among other things, I remember very much like what you were talking about, women and children should be seen and not heard. And to a large extent, you can take the seen part out for the children. They weren't even supposed to be seen. You get them out of the room.
So true. They weren't even allowed in the room.
Right. Yeah. We even had special tables for ourselves, for the dinner table. We would get a different
thing. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there was always a fun adult that would want to sit at the table with them.
Right. Yes. That's right. Yeah, that was the cool uncle or the cool aunt.
It always was. Yep.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. So yeah, these things definitely do affect us in ways that I'm still finding out ways that period of time affected me. Because I mean, I was a kid in the 60s. I was a teenager in the 70s. That's about as traumatic as you're going to get.
Wow.
And it was when you're going through it. I mean, I can actually appreciate stories I've heard from friends of mine, people who grew up in the hood, who grew up in really, really rough situations. And it was for them a really rough situation, but it was what they knew. And what I went through, that was what I knew. It didn't seem abnormal. You know what I mean?
I do. You don't know anything else. It's kind of like, I remember when I got out of college. And I said to my parents, why did you raise me in Illinois? Sorry to anybody from the Midwest or anything. And I was like, there's all these amazing places we could have lived. Why did we choose this area? And when I was younger, I didn't know what I didn't know. I just knew we lived in the Midwest. But yeah, when you know what you know and you're used to that, you start to just do the thing and accept where you're at.
Which is what makes it challenging, because when you're trying to figure things out later on, that's the stuff you're kind of like, you're trying to separate the wheat from the chaff. You're trying to figure out, okay, where's the reality here? Where's the stuff that was messing me up? Where's the stuff that's of value to me? Where's the stuff I can ignore? How do I divide all this stuff up? And then once I do that, what do I do with it all?
Exactly. What do I do with it all?
Yeah.
And how do I elevate myself? And I think about that in terms of, after I got out of college, I graduated in the 90s with a degree in photography. So that was back in the day when we were darkroom. There wasn't digital yet.
Right.
And one of my big goals was, I want to work with a strong, powerful, and accomplished female. Mm-hmm. Because up until that point, I guess I hadn't seen it, and I wanted that for myself. Mm-hmm. And so that was something I looked for. I followed my career, of course, but it was more, I wanted to really stand on the shoulders of female giants that were leading in a way that was conscious, that was authentic, that was accomplished, a way that was integrated and inspiring. And so that was one of the things I chased after, because it was something that I wanted to embody as well. And that's ultimately what led me into the role I have today, through all sorts of paths and different winds and turns. But the desire to be that feminine leader that can also, and it's not just, I guess I shouldn't say the feminine leader, but also a very integrated leader in terms of my coaching. Life coaching is very integrated. It integrates the masculine and the feminine.
Oh, okay. All right. That's good. Yeah. Well, as you were describing too, what you were describing there, the thought that kept going through my mind was, this is what we all deal with. And when I was growing up, I recall, obviously the situation you're describing was particularly female with female, but we all have similar kinds of things. We looked, trying to find idols to look up to, people to model and so forth. And I recall very vividly that because of the time I was growing up, there weren't a lot of female role models to follow. And I remember very strongly women in my life, family, friends, and so forth. It's not like it was ever a main point of conversation, but you could tell they were all looking for role models.
Yes.
All looking for female role models, females to look up to and feel good about and just celebrate. And over time, over the decades, that has emerged. More and more female role models have emerged. More and more famous females have taken on that role and so forth. But it was kind of a paucity at that time. There was a lack at that point.
I know. I feel the same way. I definitely feel the same way. And yet now in my life, I think of all of the incredible female leaders and male leaders, but talking specifically about females, female leaders that I'm surrounded with. It's quite extraordinary, and it's very exciting, and it gives me hope in terms of for the younger generations as well. They're much more outspoken, I think, which I love, than I ever was. And that's a beautiful thing to watch as well.
I agree with that. Yeah. There are many people of my generation and kind of perhaps your generation too that love to bash the millennials and the Gen Zs and so forth. They're too this or too that or too, they're just about this. It's just like an endless list. And I say to myself, do you remember what you were like?
I know, right? Do we remember what we were like?
I get the feeling that some people just kind of blank it right out.
Right. Exactly.
Oh my goodness. So, all right. Well, then let's get to, when you're we're going to go to today, and you're working with clients. You're helping women are coming to you. First of all, give us an idea of, are there like certain things that most of the women coming to you are looking for, trying to accomplish or to bring into their life or get better at or whatever? And how do you go about trying to help them get there?
Oh, great question. One of the common themes, and for me, this comes to me, a lot of women come to me from the real estate realm because I'm a sales manager for a real estate brokerage as well.
Okay. Yeah.
But what I think is I think it's similar across probably different departments of careers, is that there are a lot of people out there that either, number one, they aren't sure what they want. They haven't been able to tease apart what well-meaning family members, culture, society has told them they should want and do. And they don't know what they truly want to do. Or that's number one. Or number two is they know what they want, but they just don't know how to get to where they want. And there's a gap there. And then number three, they're working a plan. And like all of us, they realize that our truths change over time. The more deep work we do, the more inner work we do, there's a realization of, oh, that's actually not what I wanted. But what this is doing is it's opening me up to something even bigger, which I like to call the actual real, the true reason, that true path of our life, which is somewhere as well. So usually I would say people come to me when they're at some type of crossroads. They might not realize they're at a crossroad. Usually they do. And it's usually, I don't know what I want for myself. I've never thought about it for myself. Or also there's a lack of clarity with regards to what they want, because we're in this world with so many shiny objects. It's hard to get focused. Or they're looking for they're looking for the actionable path to actually go from point A to point B. Or they're looking to go from point A to point B in a meaningful way, and they want to just enjoy that journey. There's so many different reasons.
You used a phrase that I both love and loathe at the same time.
I love that.
You used the phrase should want.
Yes.
I have to admit, that has bothered me for decades.
Should want.
Should want. Like, who the bleep is the person who's saying what you should want? I mean, whoever they are, they should get off their pedestal. They should get off their soapbox. I mean, come on.
And it's funny. I think of one, and I love my mother. And if my mother watches this, I'm sorry, Mom. But one of the should wants that she would tell me was, she would say, you would be so good at running a hotel. You should want to do that. And I was like, I love you, Mom, but that is not what I want to do.
With my dad, it was, you should be a minister.
Oh, yeah.
I never did ask him this, but I actually wanted to ask him, like, do you know who I am?
Exactly. The well-meaning advice of those who love us.
But then again, even that kind of experience still helps inform us. You were talking very nicely, very, very, very well there about how we have a path that we're following, and then we realize it's not the path we want to be on, and so we change paths. And one of the ways that happens, I mean, you very eloquently also before talked about how your childhood, and I was talking about how my childhood influenced us and informed us and helped us to basically attain that level of clarity you were talking about attaining with your clientele. That clarity comes largely and primarily from one generic thing, and that is having a whole bunch of stuff that you don't want in your life.
Yes.
Because until you know what that stuff is, you can't really figure out what you want instead. You have to have the contrast. The clarity comes from that polar diversity there.
Truly. And for a lot of people, it's easier to clarify what you don't want than what you actually do want.
Oh, yeah. Like you said, there are a lot of people who just have trouble expressing what they want. And if you get them to express it very often, and I'm sure you see this all the time in your practice, even if you do get them to express it, they express it in terms of what they don't want.
Right. Or they express it in terms of, well, I can't have that. There's a limiter there. There's a limiting belief that, well, I might want this, but I can't actually have this for whatever reason that is. Yeah. So yes, it's interesting how hard it can be for us to actually express what we truly want in the positive format and allow it to actually exist and become something. It's either we say, well, I don't want this, so we're going into the negative, or we're saying, well, I might want this, but I could never have it.
And yet that thing is pointing us that the thing that we don't want, we really know, like you said, we're very clear about what it is we don't want. And that thing that we don't want, it really does point us in the right direction. We just have trouble verbalizing it. We have trouble expressing it.
Truly. It's almost as if it's like your map. You're pulling out your map and you saying, I don't want to go here. If you verbalizing, well, then, okay, let's look over here then. So it's a beautiful tool.
It is. It's wonderful. But the challenge is learning how to use it like any tool.
Use it for good.
Use it for good, yes.
You know? And I think one of the most important aspects of law of attraction is to truly figure out and know what it is that you truly want, like to gain some clarity around that, but also to be open to the truth that our truth changes as well. I think about that in terms of the different layers of life that we go through. When I was 10 years old, the truth of what I wanted looks very different than the truth of what I want now. And to be okay with that. But I think it's so important to actually clarify and understand what it is you want. And something that I think is an impactful lesson and practice is to actually speak it out loud. A lot of us don't allow ourselves our wants and our desires to actually express out our mouth, but to actually voice it into the world and voice it into being.
It's almost like we don't dare do it.
Right. Because what would happen if we actually did voice it?
Oh, no, God. Well, we can't go there. Sorry.
No, we can't go there. Exactly.
And once you voice it, it's no longer just a thought anymore. So it's like kind of taking it past that step.
Yes. And it's one of those most simple steps that I have my coaching clients do is when they say, oh, I'm thinking about this and I'd love this. And I say to them, have you ever spoken that out loud? Have you ever owned that? Allowed it to flow out of your mouth the way you did with me, but in a way that you're truly owning it. And a lot of people you'll find say, I've never done that. I don't know if I'm ready to do that. And a lot of people love the practice.
They love the practice, except when they're actually having to practice it.
Yes.
Like I can practice it behind closed doors. That's okay.
Behind closed doors. But the minute it becomes real or difficult or complicated or, that's why I'm so, another tool I like to use with the clients is pre-mortems and post-mortems. Ooh. So to talk about, let's think about how this could work out. Let's look at your idea and let's play it out. Let's do a pre-mortem. Let's talk about it could either go this, it could go this way, it could go this way, it could go this way. And it also could go a way that we have no idea how it could go. But at least we can lay it out and actually look at the variables. It's a really, I think it's a really good practice. And then also post-mortems, doing the same thing after something, maybe you go through a difficult situation, deciding to look back on it and go, okay, what can I own here? Hopefully a lot of it. Hopefully we can take almost complete ownership of the situation and go, what can I own here? What can I change? And how can I use this as food for thought, as fertilizer for growth into my next level of growth? And think of it all as that fertile soil.
So, Sam, I'm going to put you on the spot here. Can you think of anything that, if you're willing to share, I mean, I don't want to push you on this, but can you think of anything where you found yourself in that place where you really didn't want to take that step Can you think of a situation like that?
Oh, absolutely. Like, okay, the first thing that comes to mind is my music. And like how maybe just for years I was wanting to like create music and put it out there, but I was just like afraid to do so. And like a few years ago, I was like trying to write songs like with like actual lyrics and stuff where I'd be singing and accompanying myself on the piano, and I just couldn't come up. I kept Well, and as my like mindsets shifted over the next few years, the songs that I had written in 2019 weren't resonating with me anymore. So then I kind of keep up with that, and then eventually I just kind of kept second guessing myself. Eventually, what I knew was that I wanted to put music out there, and meanwhile, I'm like posting videos of myself playing piano and putting them on my social media like once or twice a week. And so then I was like, all of a sudden I got that clarity. It's like, okay, well, why don't I just create a little piano album? And that's exactly what I did. But that happened at the age of 35, and I've been kind of thinking about or wanting to put music out there for many years before that. So
and the part he's not saying, Emily, is that he is an amazing improvisational pianist.
Oh, wow.
His entire album was improvised.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, he so lowballs it. I mean, he undersells it completely.
Sam, Sam, the first thing that comes to my mind is there's divine timing. There's part of it that I think you were waiting for the right moment to express yourself in the way that felt right and at the right moment. I've always thought when I was a younger girl, I knew divine timing for my career and my expansion was going to be late 40s for some strange reason, even as a little girl. So I think you're probably right on track.
That sounds great. And yeah, no, I think you're right. I think that definitely resonates with me because I think I just wasn't ready. I had a lot of growth to do personally before like being ready to put something out there. But now I'm happy to have done so, and I intend to do more sometime this year for sure.
That's really exciting. I would love to hear your improvisation.
Definitely, yeah. I could tell you the album is called. Or yeah, my like stage name on there is just SO Page, or it'll look like So Page.
Oh.
PAGE. The album that currently exists is called Arga Charga, ARGA space CHARGA. That's just kind of nonsense that comes from my head, but it's also my name on social media, so it just kind of came as a no-brainer for my first release.
I wrote that down. I'm going to check it out.
I appreciate it.
Worth checking out. One of the things that you'll notice right off the bat as soon as you hear it is how positive his music is. His music is just one song after another as a pure expression of joy.
That sounds like a meditation.
It does, yeah.
I think it could be, honestly. And yeah, I kind of determined in the last couple of years, and I've said this on the program a few times, so for regular listeners, sorry if I'm repeating myself, but I do kind of consider it my personal like form of channeling in a way.
Yes. Truly. I love that.
And actually, yeah, encouraging me to do it more because I've been haven't done it as much these last couple of weeks, so this is good.
And he has played here on the show a couple times. He improvised something for a couple minutes, and both times that he plays, anytime that he plays, you can see it because he videotaped himself as he's playing. You can see it in his face. Just, you know how certain famous pianists,
yes.
You can see from their body language. Ray Charles comes to my mind because he's going back and forth like that. But any pianist, they express themselves not just through the music, but how their bodies are moving. And Sam does exactly the same thing. You can just see it pouring out of him. It's really something.
I just have to say, I love listening to Walt express what Sam does. That's a cool exchange. I think it's super important, in our world to really lift other people up, especially with regards to the things that they're gifts. And while you're showing that beautifully with Sam has a beautiful gift, and you're sharing it for him and allowing him to share it. I think we all need to do that for one another more often.
Well, I think it's good for us and it's good for everybody else when we do that. It's
truly, it's both.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate that very much. Also how like this upliftingness very much, but also kind of going back to what you were saying earlier, Emily, talking about women, I think that's something that has come to the limelight more in more recent years, is just seeing more of women lifting each other up as each other. And I think that's really cool.
You know, it's really beautiful, and I'll share a little bit with you all. So last year, this was end of December. This would have been 2021, December 31st, I believe it was. Here in Boulder County, we had what was called the Marshall Fires. And we had, it's over 1,100 homes that burnt down.
Yeah.
In December. We didn't even know that was possible. And my husband and I lost 2 properties in the fire.
Wow.
And during that time, my mantra was, when one door closes, another door opens. When one door closes, another door opens. And this incredible woman came into my life, actually through the podcast, the 6 a.m.ers that I co-host. We interviewed Melanie Klein, and I immediately knew I wanted her to coach me. We coached together for a quarter, and then she said to me, we need to work together. We need to create together. So what has happened is the 2 of us have come together as strong females who are coaches and have our unique walks of life. And we've created a coaching cohort, and we mastermind together. We collaborate together. And the ideas that come out of our masterminds are bigger than the 2 of us. Nice. And there's space for that. And it is so special. So I will say to anyone on this call, male or female, being able to collaborate with others and lift others up and see their gifts and see your gifts and combine them in a way is going to create and fuse and make something so incredible that wouldn't be possible just on your own. So stay open.
It's astonishing too when it happens.
It is.
When you experience it, right? When you're doing something with somebody else, and it doesn't matter what the topic is, doesn't matter what the effort is, you're working in some way together, and then all of a sudden something emerges, and you both look at it and you say, wow.
Exactly. You're like, I don't even know where that came from. That was a form of channeling. That was a form of downloading for sure. And it's really special. And never in my wildest dreams, if you would have asked me this before the fires, I wouldn't have expected that to happen. So, yeah.
Well, that was very cool, actually, that you were able to maintain your presence of mind enough to say, in the face of, you were losing 2 properties. I mean, that's not a small deal. That's a really big deal. You had money in that. You had time in it. It was an investment, and I'm sure there was insurance, but even so, I mean, this is a traumatic thing going on. And that's the time when we have the most difficulty, the most challenge focusing.
Truly.
So kudos to you for that.
Well, interestingly enough, age 19, my family's home burnt down. So I had already gone through it. And when I was 19, this was back in the 90s, we didn't do therapy back then. That just wasn't a thing. And so there was a lot of covering and denial, and I would say definitely some OCD tendencies that came out of that for me, in terms of double checking ovens, making sure everything was turned off, not to cause another fire. And so this time around, 20 plus years later, during the fires, it was still incredibly painful. But I also knew, number one, that I needed to process this. I couldn't hold this within. Because holding it within caused a lot more damage. And I also had the wisdom to know that I would get past this, and that I could also help others because I knew what they were going through. So I had to look at it as, when one door closes, another door opens.
When you are working with a client, with a customer who is struggling with whatever she's struggling with, and obviously it can be very different from one person to the next, but just kind of in a generic sense, when you're working with somebody like that and they're feeling themselves up against it, just as you were up against it that way, and they're feeling this I think is the kind of thing where we get stuck the most. We talk about being stuck or unstuck, and this is where it happens most often, because we're coming face to face with whatever our particular challenge is in our personhood, in our life. And that's the tough time. So you're kind of, you got a client in front of you, you're working with her, she's up against that. How do you get her to take that next step or to get past it?
Yeah. Well, first of all, when I'm with whoever I am that I'm coaching in the moment, I'm completely present with them. I think that is one of the most important gifts we can offer humanity, is to put the phone down, put all of our distractions down, and actually be present with the human being in front of us so that they can feel seen and heard as they deserve to. I also recognize that each and every one of us has our unique blueprint. We are all so uniquely different, and yet we are all also so much the same. So for me, one of the things that I do, on the 6 a.m.ers podcast, I also lead a meditation at the beginning of each podcast. So, I will go into a quick meditation with that person who's feeling up against the wall so that whoever that is can get present again. Because usually in those moments, we're not present. It's either fight or flight. And there's a level of not being present. I will also clarify if I think that person needs therapy, opposed to coaching, I will direct them in that way. Mm-hmm. But if I can help them action forward, what usually we start with is feeling ourselves forward. Mm-hmm. So many of us feel as though, well, I have to get this before I can feel this. I have to be whatever it is. I have to have this set amount of money in the bank before I can feel this. I have to be this weight. I have to have this person. Whatever that I have to have before I can feel keeps us from actually feeling what we truly desire to feel. So we go into feeling, and I ask that person, what is it that you actually want to feel? And can we feel that now? And we'll go into a meditation and feel that. And I also talk about clarity with them, cleaning up as you go along. When you're feeling backed up against the wall, a lot of times it's because you're either spinning too many plates, you're juggling too many balls, you're catching every to-do that comes to you. There's a reason for that. And there's a need in that moment. There's a need for, and I usually share with whoever I'm working with, to put down all of the things you're juggling. And you know what? When that person across from you throws you that ball and says, here, this is your next to do, you say, no, that's not mine. That's not mine. There's too much. So there's almost a sense of, undoing, deconditioning in that moment, letting go, simplifying, cleaning out, clarifying, so that you actually do have space to step away from the metaphorical wall and see that maybe that wall looks a lot different. Maybe if you actually turn around and look at the wall, it's actually a beautiful door that's beckoning you to walk through it.
I like that. I love that a lot, actually. And I love the fact that we're focusing on feelings because, especially in law of attraction circles, we're very focused on thoughts. Thoughts become things, which is true. Mm-hmm. Thoughts do become things. Yeah. But we often forget that the power that gets them there is the feeling.
Yes.
If you don't have the feeling part, you can think it, devoid of feeling all you want, but it's going to take a while. You're going to be sitting there waiting for that thing to show up.
That's right. You can feel yourself forward. And there are people that will say, I can't feel myself forward right now.
I was one of them for years.
Yeah. And there's baby steps. You don't have to do it. You can do this incrementally. You can achieve this in a guided meditation where you actually can feel these things. There are ways to get there.
There are ways to get there. And one of the things that I wish had been said to me when I was first considering taking steps to get there.
Yes.
It's actually fun.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Nobody ever said that to me. I wish they had, because I was afraid of it.
Oh my gosh, right. What you just said, I think, is key. I think a lot of us, including myself a lot of the times, we forget about along the journey of life, to have fun and to be in joy. Yeah. So I love that you just shared that, Walt. I hope somebody who needed to hear that just heard that.
I'm certain that's 100% true. Anytime that one of us, does something like that, comes up with some little, gem, it's because somebody needed to hear it. At least one, usually more than one.
Truly. Truly.
That's the way it works. I've learned, that's one of the things, I've learned so many things from my guests and my co-hosts over the years. And that's one of the ones that I learned. Yeah.
So true.
I've mentioned this many, many times, but I'll probably keep mentioning it as long as I do the podcast. I love the perspectives that I get and that my listeners get just by doing the show, just by talking to people like you and to Sam and others who have been on the show. And I mean, every single time that perspective is always a new perspective. It's a little bit different way of looking at things. Sometimes it's a very different way of looking at things.
Right.
Sometimes it's a challenging way to look at things. I often learn the most from the ones that I disagree with the most.
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah. Yeah. But even the ones that I agree with, I love those too. I learn so much from those. Some of them become co-hosts. I mean, that's the way it often works out, you know? So, I mean, all of those perspectives, every single one of them, I feel like I'm kind of absorbing it into my personhood. And so I have a whole collection of them that just keeps growing and growing over time. And that collection gives me perspective that I didn't have 10 years ago, let alone 20 years ago.
Oh, that's so beautiful. And I think when we have those different perspectives, we can actually step into people's shoes.
Right.
And see through their eyes and have a little bit more empathy for perhaps what they're going through, or be able to help them shift perspective if they need to as well.
I think it's also another piece that we kind of forget about. I love what you just said because I think it's 100% true. But we also tend to forget the more perspective that we have, particularly perspectives that are challenging to us, the less charged we are about stuff we don't like.
That's right. That's right. And then we can show up and actually hear what people have to say instead of just shutting down or shutting them down.
And also, the more that we are able to discharge that stuff that we don't like, amazingly, that's where we become unstuck from being stuck.
Truly, it's where we get to clean up as we go along. We get to actually continue to clean up and not have any residue with angst or whatever it is that resides in us. So it's a beautiful practice.
Yeah. Sam and I both went through a program that's run by a friend of ours, David Strickle, called the TIA practice. TIA stands for Trust Your Abundance. And one of the things that you do in the TIA practice is you do a guided meditation where he literally takes you from planet Earth way, way out into outer space. As you're looking back, there's this little tiny pinprick back there. And they don't actually say this, but the message is that's how big your problems really are. With that perspective.
From that perspective, I think I try to keep this in perspective. When you think about it, we are these little tiny specks floating on this little tiny earth spinning in the middle of outer space. What an incredible miracle. It's almost inexplicable. It's so big. It's so vast that it does allow us to go, okay, so that little problem that I thought was so big is actually so small.
Yeah. And when it's that small, that's when you can let go of it.
Then you can let go of it. Exactly. Or maybe there's a solution that you would have never been able to see had you not shifted your perspective.
That's when they emerge, right? I mean, look at Sam's face. I mean, that's when they emerge, right, Sam?
Oh, yeah. No, perspective is everything. And exactly, just zooming out, it's like, okay, and you know what? I can't get through this thing.
Exactly. Yeah. And the hope is that we get to a place where we understand that in our lifetime so that we can actually practice that.
Well, like you said earlier, it's incremental steps, baby steps. That's how we get there.
Absolutely.
I remember the feeling vividly. Literally, the way I started my podcast was I was in trouble. And really? I'd heard a little bit about law of attraction. I didn't really understand it. I said, okay, well, I'll start a podcast and I'll bring all these experts on. They can teach me all this stuff and I won't have to pay all these coaching fees. I can get it for free and I'll understand. I'll be able to fix my life. And it worked. It worked beautifully. But one of the things that I was faced with early on was the terror of, I have all these little baby steps to take. My God, there's a whole ton of them out there. This is going to take forever. That was a real fear. I really did fear like this is going to take forever. It actually didn't take forever. It took actually a relatively finite period of time, a limited one at that. But when you're first taking those steps, it's intimidating.
Truly. It truly is. And it's overwhelming. It's because you just don't know what you don't know, but that's part of the journey. And in hindsight, man, oh man, if we only understood hindsight in the moment.
But go off on hindsight for a minute, because I think you're pointing at something really important here.
Well, I think about it. I actually wrote a blog about how. Can I swear on this podcast, or will I get in trouble?
Fortunately, the FCC doesn't care, so go for it.
How fucking incredible hindsight is if you actually study it past the point. And I use it. The blog that I wrote about was actually about my situation when my 2 properties burnt down last year. And I wrote the blog a year later. And I wrote about hindsight because there was so much for me to see in terms of the shift that I created by deliberately deciding that I was going to live and dream bigger than I ever have before after this destruction. Literally, Phoenix rising from the ashes like I've never done before. And in that hindsight, when I looked back at all I had accomplished and how clear I had gotten in the previous year, and I read all of that and I studied what had happened, it really truly came down to one of the big lessons in hindsight was trusting in myself and having deeper faith than ever before, because why the heck not at this point? And it really shifted some paradigms for me to move into next level. So I suggest to everyone out there, if there's ever been some big shifts in your world, write about them and look at them from hindsight. It's almost like doing a postmortem. It truly is. And look at the golden nuggets that reside. Don't just continue going and not look back and not review what had actually happened. Hindsight is a beautiful, beautiful gift for us if we choose to listen to the lessons in it.
That's beautiful. I love that. And you also pointed to something else in there too that I want to kind of pull out for a second, which is hindsight allows us to dream bigger. We often, I don't know about you, many, many times I've felt the limitations on how far I dare to dream.
Yes.
So to know that there's a tool that helps me to break past it, that's big.
It is. It's really big. And if you can actually, the nice thing about hindsight is you actually have the data. If you write it out and review it, you can actually see the data and how it worked for you. I said all year long, I said, every time I would think about what I wanted, I'd say, okay, Emily, can you dream bigger? Can you dream bigger? Dream bigger. That was my cue to myself. And when I reviewed the year in review and I was able to pull out when I had asked to dream bigger, I was able to see that it actually created such intense momentum, a year that defied gravity for me, pretty much.
Cool. We love it. We love any kind of story like that, because that's basically you talking about how you found another personal superpower.
You better believe it.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's exciting whenever that happens.
It is. And the interesting thing, and I'm sure, Walt, you being around the sun multiple times know this as well, the wisdom of age tells us that the difficult situations can be used to create something incredibly important if we so choose to go that route. Mm-hmm. Even more so than having a lot of good things handed to you. Sometimes something so hard in your life can put you and chart your course in a way that's so magnificent. If you choose, though, you have to choose to take that path.
We haven't hit on that topic in a while, but I'm glad you brought up the topic of choice.
Yeah.
Very often we humans, we limit our choices without realizing that we're limiting our choices.
Yeah, we do. I think about that, and I can use the fire as perspective. When I was 19 and my family's home burnt down, I didn't know I had a choice to heal. I didn't know. Nobody told me, and I was 19, so I was an adult technically, so I could have perhaps figured it out, but I didn't know. This time around with the fires, I knew I had a choice. And it's a beautiful thing when you speak into and understand your own agency.
It can also piss you off too.
Yes. Yes.
Are you a fan of the Ted Lasso TV series?
I've only watched a few of the episodes, and I haven't been able to get into it. I know I'm probably going to be kicked off your show for saying
No, that's all right. No.
I haven't seen it.
I like to bring it up a lot just because it's one of the few series I actually enjoy watching. That's why I mention it. And they have a number of really, really good lines that have come out of it. One of it comes from the mouth of the woman who is the therapist in the show. There's a therapist who coaches their soccer team. And the quote that she utters, and she utters it multiple times, is, "The truth will set you free, but first it will piss you off." And it's so true.
It is so true. It's like stepping on the metaphorical scale of life.
Yes.
You might not want to see your weight. You might not want to open up your credit cards and see your debt, but the truth will set you free. But ultimately, it'll probably first piss you off.
It's going to piss you off royally. It's a great reminder because the pissed off part doesn't last forever. So if you're kind of ready for it, you can handle it.
That's good. That's really good. Oh, I love it.
One of my other favorite lines from that show, and it kind of ties into what we've been talking about here, is, oh, sure, it's going to just leave my mind. No, I'm going to bring it back. It's coming back.
We got a few minutes.
It comes from what many people, including myself, think is the best scene in the entire series. It's from season 1, episode 8. And anyone who knows the series will know the dartboard series, or the dartboard scene rather, where Ted has a little dart match with, the ex of the woman who runs the club. And the phrase that comes out of it is, "Be curious, not judgmental." I love that phrase. There are people who put that on T-shirts since that came out. Because it's such a great reminder. It's a reminder that we trip ourselves up so many times just by judging.
We truly do. Oh my gosh. And daily, even in the moments where we don't know that we are tripping ourselves up. Yeah. That's great. I mean, I think if we could go into every day with a set of affirmations and mantras, and one of them is be curious, not judgmental, imagine what the day would flow like.
Oh my God. It just, anyone who has tried it knows how the day flows. It flows a whole lot easier.
Yes.
Everything gets easier when you come at things with that approach. I mean, I've had guests on the show ask me after the show, how do you get so good at asking questions? Because you're really good at asking questions. And I said, it's really simple. I'm curious.
You're curious.
There you go.
That's right. That's right. That's the key, Walt.
It is. Yeah. It's the easiest thing in the world. All you have to do is be curious. If you're not really curious about your guest or your co-host, it's going to be a bad show. I don't care. It just is.
That's fair. Yeah.
If you're not curious and if you're not a good listener, you're just going to have a bad show.
It's going to be awful. Yeah. So be curious, and being curious is fun. That's where you get all those perspectives we were talking about.
Truly.
We're kind of running out of time. I want to make sure I get a couple things in here. First of all, you have a special deal that you do. It's I don't know if you call it a course or what you call it, but Success 2.0 was the name that I wrote down. Yes. I guess the subtitle is How to Go from Ordinary to Extraordinary. But what is that all about? Tell us what that is.
Yes. So it's a 90-day intensive. Okay. And it's 11 sessions. It comes with daily drops of inspiration and also meditations. And it's my dear cohort leader, Melanie Klein, and I lead this. So we co-coach. It's a group coaching session. It's 11 sessions, like I said, and it's all about going from, number one, shifting your metric of success, like really considering what it is that you truly want and desire, owning that, and including success in your personal and professional life so that it all intertwines. So what we do in this 11-week session is we we clarify. There's great teachings. The lovely thing about this intensive is that it's live teaching. So we have our subjects for each week, but we also cater it to the group and the group's needs as well. So we let it be this living teaching as well. So we start our next cohort, our next intensive, in May 17th.
Okay.
I'm really excited about it.
All right. So if somebody is interested in learning more about that, or maybe even signing up for that intensive, how do they find it?
Well, so what I can do is I'll share the link to the landing page so they can learn more about it. Or, of course, you can go to my website, which is embodied-living.com. That's okay. Embodied-living.com. And you will see that there's different types of coaching in there, and one of them is group coaching, and that's where you would go for that.
Okay. So that's also then the best way for somebody to reach out directly to you if they're interested in private coaching as well.
Absolutely.
Okay, good. All right. Well, this has been fun. This has been a lot of fun.
So fun.
Sam, I got to ask you, because, well, first of all, I got to compliment you because I've been kind of pushing Sam. I don't want to say coaching him, but I've been pushing him to become more and more involved, and he's doing it. He's becoming more and more involved in these conversations. So I love that part. Well done, guy.
Oh.
But I want you to kind of do a little summary for us in the sense of, when you think about what we've been talking about today, and you've been hearing the wonderful ideas that Emily's been sharing with us, what stands out to you? What jumps out to you as like the number one thing that just grabs your attention and says, wow, that really did it for me?
I think one thing actually that resonated that Emily brought up a few times was the mantra, like when one door closes, another opens. Because I've been thinking recently just about how when you kind of let go of what isn't serving you, it leaves more room for like just love and trust and curiosity for whatever's next, and appreciation. And so I feel like it's kind of a similar thing, and just, allowing that clarity and also like figuring out what you want, by figuring out what you don't want. You can kind of start there. And then as the waters are kind of muddied, as you kind of sort through more of that, more it becomes more clear.
Well said, Sam. And while I love that you're bringing Sam into the conversation, you two are so lovely. This has been so fun for me.
I'm so glad. No, this has been delightful.
Well, we're going to take it one last step further before we finish up for the day, because Emily, you, like so many people who come onto the show, you're a giver and you continuously give. I mean, you have your practice, of course, but you do these podcasts and you write articles and so forth. You're constantly giving to people. And one of the things that I noticed within the past year that I'm trying to kind of do something about is givers rarely find out about the people who they help without knowing that they helped them. So there are lots of people who you've never met, you'll never see, who saw you say something, or they saw something you read or something like that, and they got some benefit out of it, and it helped them in a way you didn't know about. Sometimes you find out, but very often you don't. So I like to make it a practice to say, on behalf of those you've never met and you've never seen, thank you for what you do and what you're continuing to do, because you're making a difference in this world.
I felt that. Thank you. Getting a little teary-eyed, in fact. Thank you.
Beautiful. I love it. And thank you, Sam.
Yeah, thank you. This has been a joy.
Keep jumping in like that. I'm loving that.
I think I can do that.
Especially with Joel, it's going to be tough. I mean, because literally, all I have to do is ask Joel one question, and 20 minutes later, I get to say something.
Yes.
You know what? I accept the challenge. I think it's going to be fun.
Oh.
So you're going to be extra challenged, Sam. You really have to make an effort to jump right in there, okay?
I can do it.
There you go. I love it. All right. Thank you guys so much. Thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.